Self-love is my number one priority because I want to fall in love with the person that I see in the mirror before I fall in love with anyone else. Why? Because it's my responsibility to find happiness within and not expect it to come from someone else. Some of the biggest lessons and takeaways that I've learned with being single for the past 10 years. Number one, I'm in complete control of my time and I get to do the things that I want to do. Number two, I get to use my hard-earned money towards passions and ideas and experiences that I want. Number three, I need to fill my cup of energy first before doing so for others. And number four, I can find happiness within me instead of expecting it to come from someone else. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man. They just don't know it yet. Bobby, how y'all doing today? Episode 65. We out ya. You know what that means? We're halfway to 70. Because 65, then we get to 70, then we on to 80, 90, 100. Brick by brick, episode by episode. We cannot and we will not be stopped. Very excited for this podcast today. Let's get into it. Crank up the volume if you're in your car. If you got headphones in, make sure they're nice and snug into your eardrum, and let's get into it. Are you happy with the person you see in the mirror? I'm talking to you that's listening. You're like, is this bearded man talking to me? Is he talking to me? Yes, I'm talking to you. Are you spending more money on your interests or on the interests of others? Are you spending most of your time investing in yourself, or are you spending time chasing after other people? What if we made self-love our number one priority? What if we fell in love with ourselves before we fell in love with someone else? What about that? Sounds a little weird. You might be like, what are you talking about, bearded man? I don't want to hug myself. But stick with me. Stick with me. How might we feel different about the person that we see in the mirror if we made self-love our number one priority? That's what I want to dive into today. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. It's coming up in a couple days. And I figure, you know what? This is the topic we need to dive into, because who other to dive into self-love than the bearded man? Let's bring it back, though. Valentine's Day of 2020, year ago, around that Valentine's Day, I should say. So this is actually kind of crazy when I think about it, a year ago at this time. But last year, believe it or not, I actually had a breakdown. And it was... I wasn't actually on Valentine's Day, but it definitely must have been somewhat influenced by the holiday, potentially. I don't know. Don't quote me on it. But I think the timing of it was ironic or weird that I had this breakdown. I was sitting home on a Saturday night on my bum with no plans, nowhere to go that night. I was, scheming through social media. I see everybody was out having a grand old time. At the time, I had no females in the pipeline. There was no woman that I was, conversating with or thought there was a potential lead. Nothing. The pipes were frozen. Nothing was coming inbound for the bearded man. Wasn't a great time. And in this moment on this Saturday night, I let this pessimistic voice get in my head, and I let it crush me. And it was like, bearded man, you're not good looking. You have no friends. No women are attracted to you, blah, 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 blah. I let this voice in my head, which was so not used. It's not what I do. I'm not usually one that allows this voice to get to my head, but it happened, okay? And I let it get to me, and I actually started to believe in the thoughts that I was making up in my own head, because I was sitting on my ass. I hadn't been on a date in a minute. I saw everyone that I knew on social media out having a blast that Saturday night. I'm sitting on my ass, like shooting people texts, getting no responses. And I couldn't believe it. I just was like, dude, you're 26 years young. You're living in Los Angeles. Like, you should be having the time of your life, and yet you have nowhere to go and nothing to do. And it ultimately literally led me to having like a crazy breakdown in my bedroom. Solo dolo. I had tears rolling down my eyes. And it was so weird, because it was like, yo, everything is going so great in your life. You're healthy. You have financial stability now. You don't have to drive Uber anymore. This was like 3 months after I took the job with Liquid IV. I had just moved to this new place in Hawthorne. It was a beautiful house. It was like everything exterior is going good. But interior, I still had some work to do. I had a lot of deep work that still needed to be done. And ultimately, as I was going through this moment, I took out my phone and I just recorded it because because I've just documented so much of my life in the last couple of years. I wanted to document what I was going through just so I had it, so I could look back on it. And I pulled up my phone and I started talking about what I was going through. And it was really one of the most authentic and vulnerable moments I had ever really captured in myself, because everything else that I put out at this moment in time was so positive and so like go-getting and documenting. And, it was like everything, if you had been following me up until this point, was just about the good. And I did share some of the other moments along the way, but this was like a really raw moment. And the next day I said, no, actually, I think the next day I said, screw it. I watched the video again and I said, if I'm going to be a content creator, I'm going to share my message and I'm going to push this idea that like, no matter the highs or lows, we got to keep going. Who am I if all I do is post the good shit? It's not authentic. I have these vulnerable moments too. And I released the video with no other intention than to show people that I'm a human being like anybody else. Ultimately, it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because there was a lot of people that were commenting and saying like they felt the same. And funny enough, Robbie, who I live with now in Venice, he was one of the first people that hit me up. I was like, yo, man, like, let's grab a drink sometime and just catch up. I saw your video and blah, blah, blah. And that really like re-sparked our relationship. So now that I'm even thinking about that out loud, it's like by me being my most authentic self and sharing that ultimately helped lead to this place where now he literally lives above me in this beautiful place that we live in Venice. So that's crazy. Anyway, that's not the point. Robbie, love you. Not what we're here to talk about today. But fast forward 12 months later, and I can luckily say that moment has never repeated itself. Of course, there have been times where I've allowed that voice in my head to get to me, and it tries to kill my confidence, but I knock it down. When I'm writing in my journal a lot, I do this gratitude journal every day, 5 parts. The third part is about priorities. The fourth part's about priorities. And the third priority that I write 3 priorities down. The one I've been writing a lot is don't attach yourself to your thoughts. And I talked about this recently on the meditation podcast, 100 Days of Meditation, I did a couple weeks ago. But that was one thing that I've written down a lot, is don't attach yourself to your thoughts. And this was a moment that allowed my own thoughts, me making up this story in my head about you're not good looking, no girls like you, you have no friends, blah, 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 which was just so not true. I allowed it to get to me and it allowed me to have this breakdown. But ever since then, I've made it a reminder to not attach myself to thoughts and not to let myself get to this place. And so like I said, Valentine's Day is coming up in a couple days. I think this is a really important topic, self-love, and wanting people to realize that sometimes that's the best thing that you can do is fall in love with the person you see in the mirror. And what I mean by that is the person that you see, every feature about this body of yours, your eyes, your hands, your fingers, your just everything, and the mind and where you're going in your future. We really got to fall, in my belief, we got to fall in love with the person we see in the mirror before we can fall in love with anybody else. And so I'm really excited to dive into this today. I think it's a great time with Valentine's Day coming around the corner. And so we're going to dive into it. But before we do, let me please remind you, beautiful guys and gals out there that are listening, if you enjoy this episode, please, all that I ask, screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob-A, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y, and help share out this podcast. It is so greatly appreciated, and it's how we build this podcast organically. Just imagine if every single person that listened to this podcast shared out this post on their story. If I had 100 people do that and they all shared it to their IG story, and each 100 people had 100 followers, the potential for the growth of this channel, this podcast, is exponential. That's what I like to call blowing up. So if you enjoy it, please screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob-A, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. The good news is, no matter what, if you do or if you don't, I'm still going to keep cooking up this high-quality content. So don't feel pressured, but I'd love you if you did. Little backstory behind the bearded man. That's me, the guy with the beard who thinks he's a hot shit. For those who don't know, I have not had a girlfriend, like a true, like, hey, we're like boyfriend, girlfriend, like, oh, like introduce my parents, oh, this is my girlfriend, or I get introduced to their parents. Haven't had that since I was 17 years young, when I was a junior of high school. Give you perspective, I'm 27. Do the math, that's a decade. Some of you listening are probably like, yo, this guy's got no game. And hey, it's okay. You can have your thoughts. I'm not attached to your thoughts. But in all honesty, I haven't had like a true, like full commitment, like we are boyfriend, girlfriend relationship since I was 17, which is crazy to think about. But since then, I've been flying solo dolo, steering this ship, skies crystal clear, the Bearded Man Express, flying through the skies, steering the ship through the ocean. I'm all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. I've had a few tings over these decades, okay? I haven't just been like sleeping in my closet for 10 years and not, going on dates or, showing interest to women. That's not what I'm here to say. I just haven't had a full commitment to a specific person in 10 years. Not against it, just the cards haven't lined up. Definitely caught some feels for sure. Definitely have talked about it on many of podcasts before. Definitely caught some feels. Maybe had a heart broken here and there, but hey, it made me stronger and it made me who I am today. So #no regrets. But while being single all this time, it took me up until this point to be able to look behind me and go, look at all these years that I spent single and look at what I learned along the way. I'm thankful that I was single all this time because it helped shape me into who I am. Not to say that you have to be single to become whoever you want to become. It just happens to be that's just how my path has been. And so I can only speak from my experience and my stories and share it to you guys and gals. And maybe your story's different, and that's okay. We're all writing the script of our own book, as you all know. So hey, this is just my story. But while being single for the last 10 years, like I said, I didn't realize the upside and value that it would bring into my life. And now you're asking, Mr. Bearded Man, how can being single and alone be upside? How can it be bringing you value? Like, you don't have a girl to hang out with. Like, you don't have anybody to go on dates with. You don't have anybody to like watch a movie with. Like, come on, dude, you got no game. Hey, pump the brakes. If you already made it this far in the podcast, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get into it because that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's dive in, shall we? Let's do it. Lessons from self-love and being our number one priority. So let's define self-love because I Googled it beforehand just to make sure I knew what the definition was because I'm sure some of you might not. Self-love, regard for one's own well-being and happiness. Let me say that one more time. Regard for one's well-being and happiness. And in parentheses, it also said, chiefly considered as a desirable rather than narcissistic characteristic. So this isn't self-love in the sense of like you think you're hot shit and everybody else can go screw themselves. No. Self-love is about prioritizing yourself, focusing on yourself, and still being empathetic and being a good human being, but still at the core, you are the number one priority to yourself. And that's also, weirdly, another part of my gratitude journal that I write in every single day. This is the number one priority. Number 3 was not attaching myself to my thoughts. Number 1, every single day for the last 3 months, if I showed you my gratitude journal, you would think I'm cooked because I wrote this so many times, but I have to continuously remind myself, and doing it every single morning is the reminder that I need for that day. And then I do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. The number one priority, self-love and investing in myself. That's what I write every single day because I need to remind myself I need to continuously fall in love with the person I'm becoming, and I need to continuously invest in myself because that is something that I can control. I cannot control how other people feel about me, but I can control how I feel about myself. And that's why I set that intention in the beginning of the day. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way is that with focusing self-love as our number one priority, we control every second of the day. So the beauty of being single is that nobody controls your time except you. There's no debating with a significant other about how are we going to spend this upcoming Friday night. There's no, let me check in with him or her to see if it's okay if I do this thing. And let's just put a little sidebar real quick because I've even heard this recently where somebody needed to check in on their significant other. They weren't in marriage or whatever like that. Like they might have been 3 months in on a relationship. I don't know. But if there's ever a relationship you need approval to do something, to get ice cream at, I don't know, Cold Stone, doesn't sound like a healthy relationship. But hey, what do I know? It's coming from the guy that's been single for 10 plus years. Don't take my advice. I know. Don't even listen to me. I know. Because I've been single for so long, so it makes sense. Why would you listen to the guy about relationship advice that has been single this long? But hey, just my bearded wisdom. I'm going to keep it moving. We control how we spend every minute of every day, and we can do whatever we please. You want to wake up and get a workout in? Great. Go for it, baby. You want to spend the entire day binge watching Your Honor with Bryan Cranston? Highly suggest it. Incredible show right now that I'm binging. Please be my guest and do so. You want to spend an entire day reading a new book you just picked up? Well, please do that, but I'd also love to join because big book guy. You're in control of it. The beauty of being single is that we're not attached to anyone, which means that we control every second of the day. We don't have to report to anybody. We don't need anybody's approval. We don't need to check in to make sure that we are in fact breathing and alive with this significant other. We wake up, we take a walk, we eat some food, we do what we gotta do, we go to sleep, and we do it all over again. The recycle repeats, and it's pretty lovely. There is no boss to report to. Occasionally, I get the check-in text from my mom. She sometimes feels like my boss, even though I'm 27 years young. But hey, it's okay. The mother figure's trying to step in and oversee the bearded man. I'm okay with that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't have anybody I'm checking in with. I don't need to get permission to go chase my dreams, to record these podcasts. I don't owe anybody anything other than myself. This is my time. I choose how I want to spend it. So we get to spend our time as we please. And there's no better way to express self-love than to spend your time on the things that you value that make you happy. So what does this look like for the bearded man? Most of my week is scheduled and I'm dialed in. Okay? 6:24 p.m. on a Monday when I record this podcast. I have not stopped since 6 a.m. this morning when I woke up. And the bearded man's eyes awoke and I said, happy Monday. I'm ready to get it. I've been going all day long. Yes, a lot of today was dedicated towards Liquid IV because that is my career. But other than that, everything outside of that is my decision-making. It is my choice of how I want to spend that time. So it's great that I have the flexibility to jump on opportunities last minute if it's of interest. And I also recognize, too, for me, being 27 years young, keyword young, capital Y-O-U-N-G, capital, because I'm 27 years young, baby, and I'm getting this cheddar. I'm trying to. I'm still so like early on in my career that I'm ready to keep putting in that work. And so me personally, being a go-getter, a hustler, having these grand visions and ideas for what I want to do with my life and where I want to go, I can make small progress every day because I am in control of my time. So number one, greatest lesson so far with self-love for me, we control every second of the day. And it is beautiful, baby. Beautiful. Number two, money to feed ideas and passions. Oh, is this a good one? Outside looking in, dating and having a significant other does not seem cheap. Tell me if I'm right. Slide through the DM and say, bearded man, you are absolutely right. It is not cheap because I don't think it is. I've been on a few dates in my day, and that's just one date. Maybe a follow-up if I'm lucky. Maybe a third. But hey, that stacks up. You know what I'm saying? But, and also, let me just say, for those maybe 1 in a million beautiful females out there, there's probably, actually, excuse me, let me take a step back. All the beautiful females that are listening to this podcast, am I against dating? Absolutely not. I'm open to it. Very open to it. Let me just put that out there to the world in case anybody specific is listening. Thank you. But there is some positivity that comes from being single and only having time to focus on you, which means that because you're focusing on you and you're single, you can reinvest that money in yourself. So when self-love is our number one priority, we're completely okay with spending our money on ideas and passions that we have. Capital W, capital E, we have. We're not caught up trying to line up days like an assembly line every weekend. Instead, we see our money and think to ourselves, how can I use this to fulfill me? Maybe you've always wanted to pick up art as a passion. So you buy the material and you start art. You start painting pictures. Maybe there's a restaurant you've always wanted to try, so you Uber Eats it to the cribbo. Great idea. What am I trying to say? We get to follow our interests and ideas because we have the money to do it. If instead we're out there on the prowl every weekend, maybe we wouldn't have the money to test and try these experiences, these ideas that interest us, because all we're doing is spending the money on people. Am I right or am I right? So, for example, every dollar that I have left in my pocket after I pay my bills gets reinvested in me. I buy books to learn. Speaking of the books, just started Nick Bare's 25 Hours a Day. This guy is my hero, and I cannot wait to podcast with him and cut this clip when I make it happen. I buy equipment to invest in my creative ideas. I buy experiences that I know are going to shape my mind and perspective. I keep using all of my extra money to invest in me. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm so used to this lifestyle of, I have $10 like chilling on my desk right here. How do I want to spend it? Don't have to check it down with anybody. I can literally spend it on however I please, and I love that. But let's take a step back. Let's get real here. Are there times that I question or wish that I was out on a fancy date with somebody? Of course. But I know that these are short-term sacrifices that I need to make in order to do these crazy things that I envision of my life becoming and doing. I know that there needs to be sacrifices, Bearded Man. Back when I first got into the podcast game in 2016, driving Uber full-time, slaying them streets, crushing it, I would ask myself, how was I going to invest my money into someone when I didn't even know who I was or what I wanted to do with my life? It didn't make sense. I can distinctively remember it was the March of 2017, so at that time I'm probably 7-8 months post-graduating college, somehow finagled a coffee date with arguably, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful women I went to college with. I'm not just saying that. I don't think I'm some hot shit, but somehow the Bearded Man lined it up. Went out on the date with her, crushed it, had a great time, and I didn't even follow up. I dropped the ball. And why did I drop that ball? I did it intentionally because I was nervous about investing in somebody when I didn't have my shit figured out. I was just getting into the podcast game. I was still driving Uber. I was like, who am I to be like dedicating all my time and energy into this woman who has clearly her eyes on the prize of what she needs to do with her life? I don't even got my shit figured out. This doesn't make sense. I can't do this. I need to take care of myself before I start getting involved with somebody else. And so stepped away and let that one slide. The story of the Bearded Man. But hey, you know what? It happens. It's okay. I'm not mad. Like I said before, #no regrets. So the best thing that we can do is we can take our hard-earned money and double down on ourselves. See where your ideas take you. Test new experiences that pique your interest. Don't feel bad about spending the money on you. It is self-love at its finest. So number 2, money to feed ideas and passions. When we prioritize self-love, this is what happens. We get to prioritize our money towards ourselves. Now, before we get to number 3, you already know, baby. Chug, chug, chug. H2O break. Do it with me. Everyone get your cup in the air. Coffee, water, maybe adult beverage. Send it. You better believe that's H2O. 4 cubes in there. Feel like I'm drinking water out of the Antarctic. Oh, yeah. It's great. High quality. All right. Let's keep it moving. Number 3. Cup full of energy for one. I don't know if you guys and gals can tell. Big energy guy. It's funny enough. Before I did this podcast, I banged out about 45 push-ups. Nope. 25, 50, 75 push-ups. I can't even count. I broke it up into sets of 25. Am I trying to flex and sound like I'm, Mr. Macho Guy? Absolutely not. But I did 75 push-ups to get the blood flowing, for this podcast, because I need to come into the show with a lot of energy. Problem with doing these at the end of the day, I'm pretty, not tired, but I'm like, if I did these at 1 p.m. every day, whoo, baby, these things would come in rocking. Anyway, I have a lot of energy, if you couldn't tell. So let's keep that in context. But let me ask you this. Has anyone listening to this podcast ever put time into someone, it doesn't work out, and you're just sitting there scratching your head? Or for me, I'm scratching my beard, and I go, damn, well, that was a waste of energy. It happened to me recently. And let me just say this. Not a fan, no bueno, okay? You use precious time, energy, and headspace, real estate, to try to fit this person in, and then nothing comes to fruition, right? Now, don't get it twisted. Sometimes you got to shoot that shot. Sometimes you miss, but you still got to shoot it, okay? And don't get it twisted. It's part of the game that we play in dating and finding relationships. We have to put energy into it in order to find it. The seed won't grow unless we care for it, we water it, and we give it the proper sunshine that it needs. I think we get that, right? We understand that. However, when self-love is our number one priority, we have endless amounts of energy to put into ourselves, okay? We give ourselves as much, as I like to call E-juice, as we need when we start off the day before we share with anyone else, okay? Is this selfish? Up for debate. But who is going to look after us if we don't prioritize ourselves first? Think about that for a minute. Think about it. Okay. With our energy cup filled to the brim, we have energy to do the things we want to do, okay? Our headspace isn't clogged up trying to understand if this other person is attracted to us or why they might have decided to leave us in the dust without saying a word or blah, blah, blah. We're not spending any of our precious energy in the day. We only have so much of it. We're not spending any of that energy trying to debate, trying to, come up with a script of why it happened or why it didn't happen. We can't do that. When we're prioritizing self-love, we're not worried about things like that, where it's just pulling away energy from us. We wake up, we hit that energy shot of life, and we tackle the day ahead of us with a clear mind, okay? My weekdays, as I was talking about before, I'm busy doing something from the moment I wake up at 6 a.m. to the moment I go to sleep at 9:30 p.m., and I love it. There are a lot of other variables like good dieting and working out regularly that I think play a crucial role in helping me have high energy. But the one that sneaks under the radar and is undetectable is making self-love my number one priority. I always prioritize myself first before anyone else. And by doing so, it allows me to use as much of that energy that I have in me towards myself. Okay? Some days, I need that whole cup. I need the whole cup of that energy. And unfortunately, I have nothing left to give. It's just part of life. But there are other days when I can share it and I can spread it and I can pass it to the next person. When I can do that, I do so. But no matter what, I make sure that I'm good first, which is the key. It's not that I don't care about other people. It's that I know I can be a better service to others and the world by keeping myself in check. So all this to say, fill your cup of energy first before you serve it to others. Might not be easy to do, but it is extremely, extremely important. Our days are precious. Our time is precious. Our energy is precious. Instead of us trying to come up and understand of why this person moved on from us or why they're not attracted to us or why we didn't get the call back on the date, blah, blah, blah. Fill up your cup of energy and sip on that. That's the third lesson I've learned from a decade of self-love with the bearded man. Fourth and final piece, finding happiness within. This may be the most important topic of today's discussion, so I want you to crank up that volume even louder. I want you to put on the noise canceling on your headphones. I want you to get real dialed in because this is the most important topic of the day. In my bearded man opinion, bearded man Bob A, my opinion, way too many people are seeking relationships for validation and happiness, okay? People think they need, N-E-E-D, capital letters, all of them. People think they need someone in their life, otherwise they can't be happy. If I don't have somebody by the hip all the time and they're my significant other or they're the person I'm dating or I'm seeing or whatever word you want to describe with the girl, guy you're hooking up with, whatever. People feel like they need somebody in their life at all times, otherwise they can't be happy. Let me just tell you right now, this is a bad path to go down, and it can be very damaging. Very damaging. I've seen it happen to others. I know people that need a relationship at all times. Lucky for me, as you can guess, 10 years strong of singling and mingling, I don't need it to be happy. When self-love is our number one priority, we find happiness within versus trying to find it in someone else. And here's the problem. You find someone that brings you a shit ton of happiness, great. I'm happy for you. But here's the question. What's your plan if they decide to leave you? Does that happiness leave with them? Or did you guys and gals sign some prenup and you get to keep all the happiness? Because that's my biggest question of the day. Who keeps the happiness when they brought you the happiness and now they decide to leave? It's going to be a big problem. Here's the solution though. Find happiness in who you are, what you do, who you're becoming. That way, when someone special comes walking into your life, the happiness only gets enhanced, but it's not reliant on them. You're not needing them to bring you the happiness. They're just giving you a little extra sauce, baby. They're spiking up the happiness level to another high, but you're already happy with the person that you see in the mirror. So you don't need them in your life to be happy, but they are an absolute pleasure to have in your life, and maybe there's a bunch of similarities. How do we find the happiness within? We do everything we talked about today. We spend a lot of alone time thinking, reflecting, and planning. I got to give credit to a lot of those late nights driving Uber, sitting on the side of the road when I didn't have any rides, and I was just there to sit and think and be alone in my thoughts. It was really, really, really important. We need to find joy in the little things that we all take for granted. Cooking a hot meal, reading a new book, a late night workout, all the things that maybe we do daily that we take for granted. Find happiness in that. Find joy. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I really thoroughly am excited to go work out because I know it's benefiting me. It's helping me push my body to another level. When I'm doing these podcasts, I get excited to do these because I know this is helping me build in my podcast career. And I hope that somebody out there finds value in it. I'm trying to be extremely present and enjoying all these little moments along the way because I don't want to be miserable and only be happy if I blow up because I'm going to be miserable then. If I do this for 5 years miserable and then I blow up, it's like, oh, sick. That wasn't the moment I thought it was going to be. We have to find happiness in all these little moments. Now, like I said this before, and it might sound a little cray-cray, but ultimately we need to fall in love with the person that we see in the mirror before we fall in love with anyone else. If we can do that, we'll be a better partner in a relationship because we know who we are. We know what we value. We know where we want to go. If we don't do that, we're essentially jumping in the car of someone else's life, tagging along for the ride, which is great. It's fun, you know. Please do that if you want to. But at some point, that gas tank is going to hit E. We're going to have to be on the side of the road and hitchhike for the next ride. If we don't know what we want to do with our life, where we want to go, the things we want to accomplish, the bucket list items that we want to check off, we are going to be going in all these different directions that may bring us to where we need to be, but maybe they won't. When self-love is our number one priority, we find happiness within us and we don't expect it to come from someone else. If anything, the presence of that significant other will be the cherry on top. Find happiness within. To recap, self-love is my number one priority because I want to fall in love with the person that I see in the mirror before I fall in love with anyone else. Why? Because it's my responsibility to find happiness within and not expect it to come from someone else. Some of the biggest lessons and takeaways that I've learned with being single for the past 10 years. Number one, I'm in complete control of my time and I get to do the things that I want to do. Number two, I get to use my hard-earned money towards passions and ideas and experiences that I want. Number three, I need to fill my cup of energy first before doing so for others. And number four, I can find happiness within me instead of expecting it to come from someone else. Challenge for the listeners. Which lesson resonated with you the most? I'm extremely curious and I want to know. And you don't have to tell me, but I would love to know. Pick one of the lessons, write down 3 ways in which you think you can better improve self-love, and start today. It's a little bit of progress, day by day, brick by brick, and it takes time. But ask yourself, am I in love with the person that I see in the mirror? And if not, what are the areas that I need to put more effort into? How can I start to fall in love with myself? Okay, I got a big ass forehead, but guess what? I love it. I got flaws about my body too, but I find joy in it and I love it. It's okay that we're not all picture perfect, but find joy and appreciation for everything about your body, about your mindset, about where you were raised. There's only so many things that we can control in this world. We can't control where we were raised or the way we look or whatever. Insert, a million things that we can't control. But we can control the way we perceive that and how we take that and translate that into our life. That's my challenge for you guys and gals. Question from the BMC. That's the Bearded Man community for any of those listening for the first time. Welcome to the community. You're now in. Just like that. Just clap it up. You're in the BMC. No annual charges. Free program. Welcome to 2021, baby. Albert said, for topics and questions, cutting people off that are dragging you down. Albert, I don't know how else to say this other than literally cut them off. If they're dragging you down, if they're holding you back, if they're talking shit about you, life is way too short to be entertaining and giving your precious energy. What we talked about before, remember? You got to sip your cup of energy before you pass it to anybody else. People that are dragging you down, talking shit, not helping you move the needle or at least cheering you on as you're trying to pursue whatever it might be in your life, cut them out and feel unapologetic about it. Because if they're dragging you down, they do not deserve to be in your life. You can be respectful. You can be respectable. Did I say respectful? I don't know. I just said 2 words. You could be respectful to them, courteous, kind, but they don't need to be in your life. If you see them passing by, you say hello. You ask how they're doing. But you're not there to catch up with them on a Sunday afternoon coffee. They don't deserve to be in your life, so cut them out. Number 2, Kris. What does the process of self-love look like? That's a great question. We pretty much hit a lot of that today. But I think if I had to answer that question in one sentence, what does the process of self-love look like? It's about prioritizing yourself before anybody else. Prioritizing your physical health, your mental health, your well-being, your mind, just everything. It is about prioritizing yourself before anybody else. It's absolutely crucial. And I meant it what I said earlier. I need to prioritize myself in order for me to be a better person of service to the people in this world. And if I prioritize myself and I get myself to my ultimate highest potential, I know that I can have a greater impact on this world. And I think it's the same for all of us. No matter what you're trying to do with your life, no matter your interests, your passions, color of your skin, color of your eyes, where you're from, if you prioritize yourself and you are at your best state, mentally, physically, everything, people are going to see that and feel that energy, and you're going to inspire other people to do the same. So, in one sentence, Prioritize yourself before anybody else. Third and final question / topic is coming from Owen. How to work on accepting where you are when you are in a rut. It's all about perspective, Owen. How can you look at where you are today and look at it from a positive lens? I've talked about this before. You can either do two things in life. You can look at your situation and your moment from a pessimistic lens, when you're just, looking at all the bad, or you can look at it from an optimistic standpoint and be thankful for all the things that are happening in your life. Easy hack when you're in a rut, Owen. Get out a piece of paper, get out a pen, write down a list of things that you are grateful for. Watch how quickly this will change your mindset. I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I have food in the fridge. I'm grateful that I have a mic so that I can record this podcast. I'm grateful that I have you, Owen, who's listening to these podcasts and wants to, drop in a comment and submit a question. It's the little things that we just get so accustomed and we take it for granted. So I think the best way to accept when you're in a rut is appreciate the rut. Know that this dark gray time is only going to help you appreciate appreciate your success and your path more in the future. And at the end of the day, find gratitude in where you are in this very moment. Great question. That is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. That is episode 65. Make self-love the number one priority. Our happiness needs to come first. Okay? This Valentine's Day, your boy will be single and mingle, just like some of you listening, and guess what? It's okay. The beauty of self-love and being single, we prioritize ourselves. And let me just say this. I'm not here to say we can't be in relationships. I'm not here to say that if you are in one, you're a bad person or you're not going to be as successful as anybody else. I'm here to help change the perspective on, if you are single, look at all the value that you can make of this time. I've had a lot of alone time in these last 10 years of being single, and I wouldn't be where I am and who I am if it wasn't for this downtime. Lean into it, okay? By us, me, you, anybody out there becoming our greatest versions of ourselves, we are going to attract the right person into our life. And the only way we do that is by doubling down on ourselves. That's the name of the game. If you enjoyed this podcast, please, as I said before, screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob-A, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Share it out with the world and let them know they need to check out this podcast because I'm the greatest podcaster in the world. The world just don't know it yet. I love all of you that take the time to listen to these podcasts. It is so much appreciated. I got so much more content on the way. The oven is still on preheat. I'm just getting warmed up. I haven't even been checked into the game, and I'm going to be shooting shots all 2021, baby. Let's go. Thanks for tuning in. It's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya.